back again with another episode of Storytime. Dave Firestone, and I'm doing a Storytime episode because the Fun in Balloonland video took me 2 weeks to produce, and I just wanted something easy for a change. And we're going to tell a couple stories about kids getting kicked out of summer camp and expelled from school. We'll start with the summer camp one because it's the least crazy of the two, and chronologically it takes place first. Now let's go back to the summer of 1995. I was in a day camp at the time, and we would go to Starved Rock for a 3-day camping trip at the end of the year. Now we had a kid, and I'm going to name this guy Tony, even though that is not his real name. I'm changing the names to protect the ignorant. And Tony was the kind of guy who would just rile people up. That was his thing. But he wasn't smart enough to have a plan in case something backfired, which almost invariably it did. So we go down to Starved Rock, we go to the group camping site, and we set up our tents, and we have the cookout, we do the sing-along, all that crap. And my tent's facing west, and I'm seeing flashes of light from the sky. And the guy who sits next to me is like, Dave, it's not going to be a big issue. So I'm like, okay, so I go in my tent, and I'm trying to sleep. Then I hear a little bit of thunder. So I go outside and I look and I realize that not only are the flashes a little bit brighter, now there are more of them and you're hearing thunder with them. So we're obviously concerned, but we're intense. What could go wrong? Well, we found out. I think 5 minutes after I went back into my tent, there was a deluge of rain. It was like somebody just took a faucet and opened it up to full. And it kept going for at least 15 minutes, if not more. And the fact that we were intense was not an issue because none of the tents had waterproofing on them. Now, we had set them up with waterproofing, but there was no waterproofing present during the storm. Except on Tony's tent. Yeah, this kid wasn't smart enough to leave a few of the rainflies on the tents to throw the scent off. He was dumb enough to just take everyone else's rainfly off the tent, but leave his on, thus making sure people figured out who he was. And people were pissed. We had been chopping wood earlier in the evening, and the counselors are now frantically running around trying to get the logs and to secure the axe. These two college kids who are just trying to earn some extra money are now having to prevent an armed insurrection against Tony. So the decision is made to call the camping trip off. And then we're gonna just go back home, and then we'll deal with things later. So that's exactly what happened. The next day, which was the last day of camp, we had basically it was a show trial where everyone just laid out how much they hate him and then unanimously voted him out of camp. Which, considering the fact that Tony's sister was one of the ones who voted yes to expel him, I think that pretty much tells you who he is or how bad of a moron he was in this situation. But yeah, but here's the funny part about this. You know what we did for our big activity for the day? We went to the beach. We were all cold, wet, and miserable. The next day we were just cold and wet. Now, that sounds like a really stupid thing to do, and it is. But it pales in comparison to the guy in my humanities class who got expelled freshman year of high school. Now, I don't know, since 40% of my viewership is international, and I don't know if humanities is a thing nationwide, I'm going to explain. At our school, we had humanities, which was history and English, back to back. Same class, same teachers, same class, and then they would work in tandem with each other. So, we have this kid transferred in. I think It was definitely after October 1st, but I don't remember exactly when. And he got expelled before the end of the semester. So he had already had a couple of suspensions at this point. Now I'm going to name this kid Earl, even though that isn't his real name. And like Tony, he loved to rile people up, but it's not like he didn't plan on... He didn't so much not plan for consequences as much as he didn't care about them. Like, he couldn't care. I'm kind of surprised he went to school as much as he did. He couldn't care about anything when it came to classes, classwork. You know, it wasn't his thing. He would say whatever he had to rile the teachers up. And he had already gotten a couple of suspensions, as I mentioned. But the last one he had prior to this incident, the assistant superintendent got involved, which, if an administrator has to get involved in your suspension, it's not ending well for you. I guess he decided he was going out in a blaze of glory because we were in English class. It was just after lunch, and we're just standing around chatting, and Earl comes in and walks up to us and goes, "Hey, I want to show you something." "All right, what is it?" He pulls out a very expensive looking walkie-talkie. Like, this is like police level. And he turns it on, and you can hear our security guards talking over it. What apparently he had done was he had gone out and he had purchased a very expensive radio and patched it in to the security guards' radio frequency. Now, if you're not familiar with police scanners, back when Radio Shack was a thing and they sold them, they would give you the option of spending, I think, like 10 or 15 bucks on a book for every single code in the Chicago area, including, for whatever reason, the ETHS security guards. And I don't know why they would have that code in there, but whatever. Now, for most kids, that would be enough. Earl is not most kids. He actually presses the button and radios in a, quote, 187 on the first floor north wing. So we're all snickering. As God is my witness, there was a pause. And then you hear, "It must be the perpetrator with the unit." So we finish English class, then we go to history class, which was not like across the school, but a significant distance away. This is where he royally screwed up. He didn't put the radio in his backpack. He just walked around carrying it. And that was not a good move, because we're in the middle of history class. I'm sitting directly behind him. There's a knock at the door, and there's a security guard, and he locks eyes on Earl. And someone had seen him with the radio, and they had contacted security and let him know where this guy was. So when the security guard comes in and locks eyes on Earl, you could tell Earl was not going to go down without a fight, and I'm sitting behind him. I moved out of the way. So the security guard walks up to Earl and says, "I'm going to take you to the dean's office." Earl gives him this look that basically says, "The fuck you are," and he wraps his arms around his desk, and he is not letting go. It took a 5-minute long struggle where 3 security guards needed to pull the desk off of this kid and drag him out, kicking and screaming. We never saw him again after that. We did find out later that he was expelled, but when the assistant superintendent says, "If you get another detention, we can expel you," I would be on my best behavior, but like I said, he didn't really give a rat's ass about anything. I'm surprised he was at school as much as he was. He's like the kind of kid who would just ditch and just not care about the consequences. So yeah, those are my stories of watching people getting kicked out of things. What's up, guys? Dave Firestone here, back again with another episode of Storytime. Today I'm going to tell the story about a really sketchy company I used to work for. Well, I take that back. Company is giving these guys too much credit. So in 2005, it was either 2005 or 2006, I think it was 2005, I got a job at a Christmas ornament store located in a very upscale Chicago suburban mall. I should have known from the way I got the job that something was up. I had, at the time, shoulder-length hair, I had a full beard, and I was wearing a hockey jersey and acid-wash jeans. I had just gone to this mall to watch a movie because they had a really good deal. And I had left the mall and I was just wandering around and I came across this store and I was looking at some of the stuff because they did sell some really nice stuff. And I talked with the owner for 5 minutes and he offers me a job. Now, if you're not familiar with DePaul University and their break system, I don't know if they still do this, but at the time their winter break was from Thanksgiving to New Year's. So that's about 6 weeks I got nothing to do, so I was able to get a 2-day-a-week job working at this place. And I thought, great. I should have known something was up because after working retail for as long as I have, I know that you do till audits, you do inventory, and to the best of my knowledge, none of that ever happened. Now, granted, I was only there 2 days a week. But up until Christmas, we were doing great business. You know, we were seeing the owners every day. He was very nice. And then Christmas Eve happened. And I'm pointing this out because it is crucial to what's about to happen. He's running back and forth between 3 different locations, all in upscale malls in different parts of Chicago. 2 in suburban Chicago, which are very far away from him, and 1 in downtown Chicago. Plus, I should also mention he lives in what we in Chicago call downstate Illinois, so he's like 100 miles or so outside of Chicago. He comes in on Christmas Eve just as we're shutting down and gives me and my supervisor each a box of chocolate and thanks us, and that was the last time we ever saw him in person. He vanished. And a week or so after he vanished, we found out why he vanished. We start getting phone calls from his suppliers, one of whom is based in Austria, the other one who is based in, I believe, Hungary. And I don't know how much it costs to call Austria from Illinois, but it's not cheap, folks. We were getting calls multiple times a day demanding to know where the owner was and demanding to know where their money was, because now he's stiffing his suppliers. So working in a Christmas ornament store in January is like waiting for death. You're not doing any business. It's just nobody's coming in, and you just know that you're going to be not employed soon, and it's depressing. But the last weekend in January 2005 was the last day, and we found this out because I came in on Saturday because I had the key that day that we were going to be closed. And how did I find this out? There was a note that had been slipped under the door that was written by the owner stating that they would be shutting down on Sunday. Now, I don't know if this was because he didn't want to renew the lease, or he didn't want to pay up for another extension, or if he was just stiff in the mall, which at this point wouldn't have surprised me. So on that particular day, we didn't do any business. I mean, imagine being in a store by yourself for 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours, with not one customer coming in. So when you have to type a paper, it's a perfect environment. So I was able to type a paper for the first 6.5 hours I was there. I then went to Taco Bell for lunch. Yeah, that's another thing. I'm not mentioning this mall by name, but they're a very upscale mall. They still exist. And they had the trashiest food court I have ever seen. I mean, we're talking high-end jewelry stores, high-end fashion stores. And their food court included an Arby's, a Taco Bell, a McDonald's, and a Johnny Rockets. So, after doing no business for the first 6.5 hours of the 8 hours I was there, we had our first customer, who was a very nice gentleman, and then our final customer came in, bringing her 2 children with her. Now, if you've worked in a store that sells breakable things and all they sell is breakable things, you get nervous when you see kids. But I will give credit where credit's due. 99.99% of them are very well behaved. Guess which percent these 2 fell in? Because these 2 kids walked up to a freestanding shelf which had about $5,000 worth of very breakable stuff on it. And these were heavy vases. You could, if you pull these things down on you, if you're lucky, you're getting coloring books for Christmas for the rest of your life. If not, you're probably not going to be, it's probably going to be just a couple of gravestones that need to be purchased. So I try to be patient with them, and I say, you 2 cannot do this in here, you need to leave. No more venom than that. They completely blow me off. I say to them again, you 2 need to leave. You can't be doing that in here. Again, they blow me off. Finally, I say, you know what? You 2 need to leave right now. Get out of my store. And then the mother proved herself to be a Karen. The complete and total package. She had the, may I please see a manager haircut. She had the whole attitude. And she stomps up and goes, you can't talk to us like that. You can't talk to my children like that. Like, ma'am, I was trying to keep your kids from injuring themselves. This wasn't like a hole in the wall with shelves. This was a freestanding shelf, mind you. And so she's like, well, I don't want to be talked like that. You can't talk to me like that, blah, 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 and just doing her whole head bobble thing. And just, and then finally she tries to intimidate me into apologizing. Well, I'm going to call the owner. Good. Call him. I haven't seen him since Christmas Eve. I've been talking to his suppliers more than I talked to some members of my family. I'd like for you to call him because I have a few questions that need to be answered. So we go back and forth, and she's just a bored soccer mom who has nothing better to do but to bully around a store employee. So finally, I get impatient and I call mall security. And the first guy that showed up was the new kid on the block who's just trying to talk her down and appease her, and she's just not having it. And then the second mall cop comes in, and you could tell this guy was the veteran who just saw everything. He was not having this woman at all. And I should point out that we had the doors closed to the front of our store at the time. We had the doors closed, and the doors were pretty well soundproofed. And this second cop walks up to this woman and says, and I quote, "Ma'am, we've had a number of complaints from tenants about your children's behavior. You need to leave the mall right now." And oh, did that light off World War III. This woman, I have no idea how she was able to breathe the amount of screaming that she did, because she completely freaked out on this guy. And again, if you're nice to me, I'll be more than willing to help you. That's a rule of retail. If you're nice to us, we'll help you. You want to be mean to us, I'm not going to be treated like that. So finally, they have to call in extra guards to get this woman out. I called my supervisor who showed up. I gave him the key. We locked up the store. And that was it. But unfortunately, I should have seen this coming, and even when it did come, I wasn't all that surprised. I didn't get my final paycheck. I mean, it's only $125, but I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. So, yeah, that's why you should always do research before you get a job.